Hello again from Kenya. Want to come and share some of my experience with you on this day. Today I applied, I was approved for an extension for 2 months here in Kenya while we continue to work on some of our missions projects to see those to completion before I head back to the U.S. to handle some business there and then back to Kenya to continue with the work here. We also have a big announcement to make that our next country that we will be establishing a missions base in is South Africa. Yes, South Africa, you're next. So once we get completed with our missions base here in Kenya, we're going to be reaching out to some of our contacts in South Africa, in Johannesburg area, and then we'll see what steps to take going forward from there to other parts of that country. But for now, our East Africa missions base in Kenya is scheduled for completion around September or October of this year. Stay tuned for more information about that. It will be based in Salai, Kenya, which is about an hour north of Nakuru. Now let me talk about the process to get the ETA extension. So your first visit to Kenya is a 90-day extension, a 90-day visit. So you can stay for 90 days on the ETA when you arrive. So I still have a couple of weeks left on that, but I want to go ahead and get it settled a few weeks in advance. You always want to plan in advance for things to prepare for any contingencies that may happen. So we applied online for the extension. It's a $50 US fee, which comes out to about 6,500 shillings. You will get an approval notification on your email through the Foreign National Service portal, something like that. Set up an account there, apply for the extension, pay the fee online. You'll get notified that you've been approved. You just take a copy of that letter in your passport to the NIO house. Hope I'm saying it correctly. My Kenyan friends laugh often when I mention NIO because I guess my accent is very different. But the process was relatively simple. Of course, if you've never been in Nairobi is a very congested place with pedestrian traffic as well as vehicle traffic. So people who may not be used to the hustle and bustle of a big city may find that a little bit unnerving. But the process was relatively simple. You go in, there's a customer service check out there, but you don't have to stop there unless you have questions about knowing what to do. Hopefully this video will help you know that you can just go to the elevator, which has an express to the 17th floor. The 17th floor is where they handle all the different immigration procedures. There's a customer service section there. You want to check in there, tell them what you're there to ask about. If it's a extension of your tourist visa, which they call the ETA, they'll ask for your passport. They'll ask you when was the application submitted. And then they handed over my passport and my approval letter to one of the immigration officers and told us to take a seat. And they took our paperwork and passport to one of the counters. And I guess we maybe waited 40, maybe 45 minutes. And then they had stamped my passport. What I come to find out is that even though you can stay up to 90 days, in our instance, the application was submitted for a work permit, which really should have been for my Class K retirement permit as an ordinary resident. But regardless, they stamped it for 2 months instead of 3 months. And the officer stated that it was because any applications that's submitted for the reason for the extension being awaiting a permit, work permit or any type of permit, I would guess, they can only give you 2 months. I'm assuming that's because it may take 2 months to process the permits. Prayerfully, that's true. I'll update and let you know about that once I find out. So they approved it today for another 2 months, which is 60 days from the date of today. Today was February 20th, so it goes through April 20th. my ETA is now stamped to go through that date. So I'll probably be returning back to the U.S. prior to that time to handle some business, get our mission base there established, and some mission workers in place for the property there. And then we'll be back to Kenya to continue with the mission of our business initiatives. We started one business, will be opening in a few weeks, mid-March. We'll have the grand opening for our Fresh Harvest Cafe in Nakuru. And then hopefully around the mid-April, we'll have the second grand opening for the Muse Nail Spa, Fashion and Accessories. So stay tuned as I update you on those two projects that we're working on. But I really wanted to come and give you somewhat of the process of how to get your ETA extension. You would apply online, pay the $50 fee. Now there are lots of people in Kenya, a lot of people who have relocated or say they have relocation services that they can help you get things processed faster or easier. I can't attest to whether that's true or not. We did pay a small fee for someone to expedite the process for the extension, and it appeared to have worked okay. We did pay a small fee, and the approval letter came the next day. So here in Kenya and maybe in other places, it's about who you know, not what you know. So you give somebody a little fee and they'll maybe expedite the process for you. Now, I will not vouch for any persons who offer those services. You must do your own due diligence, or take those services at your own risk, so to speak. But once you find a trusted person who has a proven track record, then you may feel better about going about it that way. But the process does not seem to be overly complicated. The only thing that many who I've spoken with that have went through the process without the aid of one of these concierge services is that you simply have to maintain a regular communication with the immigration office. You have to call regularly, and it doesn't hurt to visit the office. There's a number that I'll post in the description of this where you call for inquiries. And there's also someone who gave me the number of an immigration officer they worked with to help find out about information about their particular application. And you can contact me and I can give you that information as well. So don't be intimidated by the process. Some people seem to make it be more difficult than it is. It seems to be the most stressful part, maybe the waiting game or not knowing if the process is going forward. So that's why you have to do regular calls, maybe regular visits, or have someone that does know someone that can expedite the process for you. So if it requires giving a little fee to someone to do a VIP service for you, that may be worth it for you. I'm also looking at the Class K permit, which is what we call the retirement visa for ordinary residents. Now that's a lot more expense involved with that process, so I really suggest you do your due diligence or even get an immigration lawyer. Perhaps could be just as cheap as what some of the people are charging, from what I hear from other people, to expedite that service for you. And there's one instance where a person assured that you can get the Class K within a month, then later said it'll be 3 to 4 months. So you have to be careful. There's really no way to surely guarantee it, but you will hope you're working with a person who's trustworthy, a person who's informed, a person who's professional, that will communicate with you regularly about the steps or your process, because everybody's money is not the same. Some people really make sacrifices to come to a new country. In this case, coming to Kenya, trying to establish a home or residence and trying to navigate through the process of immigration, extensions, type of work permits, retirement permits, investment permits. There's a lot of information that's really, if you just go to the Kenyan government website, and I'll leave a link in the description, and research these things. Get familiar with the numbers. Even ask Google the questions to verify that people are giving you correct information, because one person gave me false information. They said that the fee was $10,000, but I knew that wasn't true because through the website that had already applied, and the fee was $20,000. So make sure the person that's supposed to be helping you is up to date and informed. There's no need paying someone for not knowing what you can know for yourself. The only advantage I can see to paying someone to expedite is to expedite the process, because they should be familiar with how it works, and supposedly they have people that they work with in the immigration office that can flag your application and expedite the process. That would be the only advantage to going through it that way. Otherwise, just file your applications online, pay the fees online, keep the copies of your receipts, and check the notifications regularly. Or you can call, there's a number that they had at the immigration office to call for inquiries and inquire about your particular application. Okay? So you don't have to go through other persons. You can walk through it, but you have to be patient. Every country has its own system of doing things, even back in America. When you file for immigration things, nothing happens overnight unless you may know someone in the circle, just like they have to do here. So be patient. Hakuna Matata, as they say here. It means no worries. Just make sure that your application has been received and it's being processed, and then it's really a waiting game to make it happen. So when you have to leave the country, from what I understand, there's no required time that you have to stay out of the country before you can return back. In my case, I have a 5-year multi-entry visa. So I asked a few people, they said you can leave, maybe sarcastically speaking, you can leave for an hour and come back the next hour and start your 90 days all over again. I'm not sure how true that is, but there does not appear to be a minimum time that you have to be out of the country before you return back. I'll be out for a few months, or at least a month or a few weeks. Then I plan to return, and from what I understand, my 90 days will start from the time I return back to Kenya. And preferably by that time, in my case, I will have been approved for the Class K Ordinary Resident Visa, which allows you to live and or retire in Kenya, and that's a 3-year permit. There are fees associated with that. That's much higher than just extending your visa. The 20,000 shillings is the fee you pay for that Class K visa. And once you're approved, you have to have some type of bond, insurance bond. Not sure what the cost of that is for sure, but you can research it online. And then there's an annual fee of 250,000 Kenyan shillings. I'll convert that to the US dollars and put it on the video screen. I don't want to give you the wrong information. And of course, currency fluctuates daily. So the price that I post may not be the price at the time that you see this or do the process for yourself. And so annually, you'll renew at 250,000 shillings. And that's for 3 years. You'll pay it every year, 1 year, 2nd year, 3rd year. And then you have to renew that visa, that permit, that is. And I'm sure it's probably another 20K fee. Don't quote me on that, but I'm just assuming the process. But I'll be sharing my process with you so you can know some of the questions about immigration. And I appreciate the questions I've been getting about housing and setting up your M-Pesa phone, that is mobile money, different housing options, different cities, as far as that go. And depending on what you're here for, if you're coming for short-term stays, there are Airbnbs everywhere. Do your research, read the reviews, ask people on the ground. We're here on the ground. You see the apartment complex that we're in. There are many Airbnbs here. In fact, before we started renting here, we had stayed in an Airbnb here. So we were somewhat familiar with this apartment complex because of the stay in our Airbnb. Then we decided to rent long-term. So I can point you in a direction with that based on my experience, as well as I think on a previous video I shared with you some of the more luxurious areas of Nakuru, as well as Nairobi. And I talked with you about some of the processes to buy payment and some of the areas that you can find land to build and how that process works in Kenya. And we'll be sharing more with you about that as we go through the process of building our missions base, which will be in Salai, Kenya. So hopefully this information has helped someone. help you to be able to navigate through the process of applying for an extension here, applying for different types of permits, retirement permit. You'll find all that information on the Kenyan website that I'll have in the description of this video. So again, follow your dreams, pursue your dreams. You only live once. Live right and enjoy life, and live purposeful. Live a meaningful life that leaves a legacy of good in the earth. God bless you. Talk with you later. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share.